I see eyeballs. Okay, so I think there's like real people here. Hi, good morning. If we haven't met, I'm Stephanie Feld. Um, we're going to talk about intensives and money today. And when I started supporting therapists with intensives, it became very clear that money is an important topic. Of course it is. But that there's a lot of questions around money, rightfully so. And then specifically, if you're private pay only, or if you're an insurance-based practice, or a combination. So we're going to talk about all the details so you know how do I actually offer intensives given like the type of clients I see. So again, if you're logging on, let me know if you're here. Hit a like, hit a comment, and it's 10 o'clock, so at least Central Time. So I might dive in. I know a bunch of people are going to be catching the replay because obviously this is like prime time to be meeting with um, clients. So let's give it like one more minute. What more things can I say about myself in case you do not know me? And I'm in my partner's office today, so it's a little bit of a different vibe, but that's all right. He's at the DMV. Fun times. Um, what else? So I'm EMDR certified therapist. I'm a consultant in training. I started doing intensives because I thought that's such an amazing idea, and I love the idea of going really deep with people. It's so like one of the worst moments um is when it's like right at the end of session and you get to something really good and you're like, oh my gosh, we worked so hard to get here, and now I just have to like casually wrap up and be like, let me make a note, we'll come back to that next week. And it's like, who knows what will be happening next week. Even if you're have every good intention, it's super hard to get back to that like, ooh, good um nugget. So that's why intensives were so appealing to me, was just that like deep client work that they allow for. And then when I started doing them, I was like, oh, this isn't just good for my clients and like their healing journey. This is good for me too. That like, I enjoy doing deep work. It's fulfilling to me. It makes me feel like I'm doing the work that like why I became a therapist in the first place. And being like a mom of a small child, living with chronic illness, being neurodivergent, like there's tons of reasons why intensives are a much better fit, like format of therapy for me personally, um, than the standard like insurance model, which is, have a bunch of hour long quote unquote sessions in a day, days and days. That was just sort of killing my soul. So it was exciting to try something new. I'm always open to try new things. And then once I started doing it, I just did not want to stop. So now I just love to share with other therapists who might be curious. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's not. That's totally fine. We will talk through all the things. So, okay, we are past 10. That was me giving my little background and buying a little time in case anyone else wanted to join live. I'm very chill. So if you have questions or if you just want to say hi, whatever, I have the chat open somewhere, either on my on my phone or here. Um, and we can totally bring up like whatever specifically you have today that you're curious about. And then I've been collecting questions in the Facebook group, like for weeks, specifically around the topic of money and insurance and private pay and all that stuff. So we'll start there, but feel free to add in your own stuff. Oh no, this took me away. How do I get back? Cool. Oh, there's comments. Yay! Okay, that makes me feel like, I'm interacting with people. So Amber says hi, Paula's here, Beverly, yay. Okay, good to see you all. Awesome. All right, I made slides mostly because I get distracted really easily if I don't have them. So let's see, how do we actually do that though? I need them here, and then I need them to be on the screen for you. Okay, yeah. And boom. Once again, Canva. I love Canva. Oh, Amber, hopefully you're having a good morning. Yeah, so far I have my coffee. Then I'm so happy for it to be the weekend. The Halloween day just really, really threw me off. So hope you all are doing okay with this weird holiday in the middle of the week. Well, at the start of the week, I guess. Okay, so therapy intensives, all things money. Let's give it a shot. We all have complicated money stories. I know I do. So I will do my very best to share my experience and also the things I've heard having been in therapy intensive community for a bit now. And then little preview or sneak peek, Audrey Shane is one of my most favorite people to talk about money and money mindset. I just love her to bits. And she's going to come into the group live soon. Yeah. To help us process and think about money mindset and therapy intensives because it is a thing. And you will see that as we go through the slides. So yay, if you love Audrey, keep your eyes open for that. And if you don't, stop your eyes open. You might come to love her. So this is me. I already said my little hello. And my claim to fame, I guess, in this group, though I'm can't just do one thing, I need to do lots of things to stay happy and creative, is that I started the Intensive Design Lab, where we get to talk about all intensive things and help therapists launch and grow them in their practice. So just a little let's start from the beginning, because intensives are still not widely known in the therapist community, and then definitely not from our clients. So it's good to constantly remind what are we even talking about and what is the language that we use to talk about it, so we kind of have this shared context. So I'm burping. What are therapy intensives? So they're an accelerated form of therapy that allow for clients to feel better faster. And so in our last training, if you didn't catch it, it's free in the group. It was really diving into this question deep. And there's a ton of different ways you can do intensives. That's the fun part. My favorite way is to do 3 days consecutively, usually a 3-day weekend, with 3 hours of therapy on each day. So that just for the type of therapy I do, EMDR and IFS, it's just a really, really great format. And I've been loving to see the breakthroughs that clients are able to make with that deep focused amount of time. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about therapy intensives. Of course, people do 6-hour days or 8-hour days or a whole week, or there's a ton of variations. But that's kind of that's the vibe. Okay, and then before we talk about the price, let's talk about what they are, because obviously the price is going to be influenced by what we're offering, and more than that, what clients get out of the intensives. And I realize if you're watching this and you haven't firsthand had an intensive as a client, or offered an intensive as a therapist, it might be a little hard to like conceptualize or wrap your mind around. So I'm just going to like, really break it down. So intensives are a high touch premium pay service. This is different than just typical week to week therapy where folks are just kind of like, I mean, obviously people can come to therapy if they're in crisis, but a lot of times there can be kind of like a maintenance kind of vibe as well, where it's just like, this is just my, actually, Kerry Washington just did a really cool TikTok, I think, about this, saying like, I go to the gym every week, so I'm going to see my therapist every week. Like I'm keeping my mind and my emotions in shape. And I love that. But someone's not going to schedule an intensive just to like keep their emotions like in shape. This is more for people who, well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but are really looking for a deep investment of time, money, and then transformation. So the benefit of doing an intensive for the client is that they see faster results. And sorry, that's kind of like a businessy way to say it. But essentially, your goals for therapy, because it's accelerated, you're getting to where you want to be more quickly. And that's a big deal. I know personally from my experience, I've had people come in and do 3 days of therapy. And this sounds so fake, but I swear I'm not lying to you. Some other students like in intensive design lab have experienced the same. And then obviously like the whole community of therapists who do intensives. You can see people get amazing results in like 3 days that could have taken like months, like perhaps even a year, depending on how frequently they're going to therapy and kind of like their focus and readiness. In one of the intensive groups I'm a part of, someone said today or this week that clients who come for intensives, like they are focused. They know what they want to work on. It's not just like nebulous. Usually there's like a really intentional focus and you set aside deep time. And so the results you get are just like that much more accelerated and amplified. So just giving some context, not like a infomercial, like faster results, save money, like that's gross. But from like a heart place of offering them and watching, other people experience them, it's legitimately true that transformation is coming in a shorter timeline. And for some people, especially if they're in a lot of distress, that's very, very, attractive to them. When I say save time, what I'm talking about is the time you would spend, like, say, 6 months of weekly therapy, an hour per week, 4 hours per month for 6 months, like that cumulative amount of therapy versus coming for a weekend for like 9 hours of therapy. So it's you're saving time over the long span that like you might have been in therapy for that specific issue. Obviously, we can't like literally map that out, but that is also a compelling benefit for people. And then similarly to that, saving money, intensives is definitely a big financial investment. Um, and when you look at how much they could be spending week after week over a long period of time in therapy, there is a savings there, and it being cost effective is also a benefit that people, value and appreciate. So I'm trying to be sincere about this without coming off like it's some kind of magic bullet that is amazing and everyone should do this, because it's not for everybody, but it is for some people. So continuing on with this like high touch premium pay kind of vibe, another reason why it's at a premium price point is because as a therapist, what you're doing is also more intense than what you would do in just like a typical day-to-day, week-to-week kind of session, because you're also coming focused with a very specific treatment plan for that period, like concentrated period of time. And so like that's at a higher price point. It's almost like going to see a specialist versus just like a general practitioner. Like there's a very um it's very focused. It's typically specialized. Not that you have to have like a certain kind of credential or background, but maybe you're just specialized in that particular presenting concern or in their background or their personality or like whatever it is. Intensives definitely tend to be more niche. So, anyway, back to the therapist investment. You know, it's an investment of time. It's really different to sit with someone for 3 hours as opposed to, 50 minutes. So that is your time, the energy to like stay tuned in and present with someone for that amount of time. There's typically some amount of planning and prep, especially when you're new to intensives. I remember I was like stressed, so I sort of like made a little like from this minute to this minute, we'll do this from like, 15 or 30-minute blocks. But still, that was like planning. Now I kind of have my groove and I don't need to plan minute to minute for what I do in intensives. But there is certainly some planning and prep. And then there's rest and recovery, because being that present to someone for that amount of time, like you do need for your own self-care and for your own replenishment some downtime after that. And it's okay to build that into the cost of the service. um in fact, that's a really really good idea. So I'm checking in on comments. Can someone tag me in the previous training? Yeah, for sure. If you're in the free Facebook group, you can look on the events tab and all the trainings are going to be listed there and the links are inside. And then I'll also like tag you when we're all wrapped up here. But that one is called What Are Therapy Intensives? um, and that's also a great place to start. So, checking in. If you're hearing this and you're having questions or things are coming up for you, feel free to pop them in the chat and we we'll keep rolling along. And if you're watching the replay and you're having reactions or questions, it's not too late. Definitely drop a comment or a question in there. Make sure you tag me so I will see it at Stephanie Feld. And then I will come back to this. This is not like a one and done kind of situation. We're going to have questions about this, hopefully for a long time if you're really considering it and thinking about it deeply. So this is another question I get a lot, especially, we haven't even talked about numbers. We will. Especially when people see the numbers and it's expensive, then they're like, what clients want to do this? Like, as if like, nobody, like it's outrageous to invest a lot of money in your therapy and your mental health. Which is like it's a fine reaction. But I'm telling you, there are definitely people who value this and they want to invest their money. So who wants to do an intensive? It can be really helpful for people, especially just from like a logistics point of view. If their life and their commitments are such that they cannot commit to weekly therapy. So there's like a couple different groups of folks that this might apply to. Maybe they have young kids and it's just not feasible. Maybe they are traveling a lot for their job, and so their schedule is so irregular that, meeting weekly is not possible. Maybe they are also just like in a really busy season of work. Maybe they're not even traveling, but their like schedules are just very, very full. And adding a weekly commitment is just going to lead to like overwhelm. So in that case, some people like they truly want to just come for a weekend and deep dive. Other people uh who want intensives because they're dealing with a major disruption in their life and they want relief now. They don't want to wait to sit in a weekly therapy session for 3 months or 6 months or, however long it could take to get relief. So an example of this is, I work with sexual trauma. So I see folks who like have recently had a traumatic experience or like a sexual assault, and it is disrupting their life. They're having a lot of trouble functioning. Yes, in that case, they want relief now. They want to feel like themselves again, and they're willing to invest a weekend of therapy to kind of get things back on track. Another example of this is if there's a significant death or grief or loss that's just turned life upside down, and they want help to get kind of like not to solve it or make it go away forever or whatever, like lose the feelings, but just to feel like they can exist in their life again. And then I also see this come up with couples who are in really difficult points of their relationship. Maybe there's been like an infidelity or just like a huge break of trust, and existing in the same space in the same world together is just very, very painful. Then investing in a weekend of intense therapy is actually very wanted. And they're happy to do that in order to kind of get things back on track. So those are some of those examples. I'm sure there's more. In fact, if you offer intensives, or if you're thinking of like a certain presenting problem or client group who might feel an urgency to do an intensive, drop it in the comments because I would love to get some more ideas out there. And then similarly, it could just be from like a scheduling point of view. So maybe there's a college student who's on spring or summer break and they're back in their like home residence and want to do an intensive with a therapist they already know. It's also really common for teachers and professors or anyone in like the education system to want to do an intensive while they kind of have like space away from their typical work schedules, to process things that maybe have been coming up. They're not disrupting so much that they can't like function in their life, but they now have this like buffer time that they're like, oh, this is a time I want to, really prioritize my mental health and healing. I've had educators schedule intensives in the summer for that reason. Or, I mean, across lots of different industries or disciplines, if someone's on a sabbatical for the same reason, people do take sabbaticals for lots of different reasons. And often at times it's to kind of process or shift into a new season, that kind of stuff. And similarly, like medical leave. I work with a lot of folks who live with chronic illness, have medical trauma. If they're on medical leave, that might be another time that they might want to do an intensive. And then expecting a big life event. So this is an interesting one. Someone wanting to have an intensive maybe before they give birth, before they get married, they have like some past like I see a lot of intensives for people who've had like bad breakups, and those relationships are still like impacting them in their present, even though that person's not in their life anymore. So before, an engagement or a marriage, what are some other big life events? Birth, sometimes like a career change or a move. I've seen that too. So there's lots of reasons why people might feel, compelled or motivated to do intensive therapy. And this is just, some of them. Oh my gosh, we need to get to like the dollars and the money. Oh, well, here we are. I'm like feeling antsy for it, and now we're here. So, given all that, how to price a therapy intensive, I do feel like we need that background to really appreciate why it's of value to people and why it's different than other things out there. And so, obviously, like pricing your therapy services, regardless of whether it's an intensive or any format, is really, really personal. And I'm sharing a formula here that I've seen like in the broader intensive community. But at the end of the day, always, always, always setting your fee at what is in alignment with you, with your values, with your needs, with your financial goals. That is always, always going to be the best way to set your prices. Never just follow a formula because someone said do this. Like really as much, and Audrey can help with this in her when she comes and like talks to the group, but to really make sure it feels in alignment with you and with your life. So all that like caveat, I'll say when I started offering intensives, I started, you know, offering them to my current clients. And I think to this day, that's, I think, the best way to get started. And that's what I recommend to people. And in that case, I'm not going to upcharge them. I mean, you certainly can, but usually I'll say I'm offering this new service. And I would love to like grandfather you in or extend a discount to you. Like it's going to be, the price is going to be high for new people, but since I know you and we've been working together, I'd love to offer you an intensive at the like our standard rate. That's a great way to start. Low pressure for you, low pressure for them. And then as you start to bring in new people, because that's a little bit, again, more energy to get to know someone, prep the experience for them. I would really recommend having an intensive rate that's above and beyond your typical normal rate. So that could look like 20 to 25% more. So if you were going to calculate that, that would just be, your hourly rate times 1.2, and that's going to be your intensive hourly rate. That's kind of like where I started when I started offering it to new people. And then once I was kind of seeing people pretty regularly for intensives, um, I instituted, is that the right word? I added in a weekend rate as well. Because like I said, I'm a parent, I have a young kid at home. Beyond that, even if I didn't, I value my downtime. I'm an introvert, I need to charge. If I'm offering therapy on the weekend, that's taking away from my personal time, away from people I love, all that kind of stuff. So now I do have a weekend rate, and I'm really transparent with people on my website. This is the rate for weekdays, this is the rate for weekends, and then they can decide. They can decide what works best for them, what price point they're comfortable with. I'm just giving options and allowing clients to have autonomy about what services work best for them. I think that's a really great like mindset to have, is an intensive is just another choice. And if that feels good to clients and they resonate and they want it, then great. They'll book with you for an intensive. And if it doesn't, they'll stick with weekly therapy, and that's okay too. You're just giving more options. So yeah, 20% higher. I'm sure as I went on, I had done fee increases to my hourly rate, and then, based off of that, also raise the intensive rate on top of that. So feel free, if you're here listening to this, you have thoughts, comments, if that excites you about the earning potential for intensives, if it freaks you out, like all the reactions are welcome. And I'm happy to hear how it hits you. That's like a part of our money mindset work, right? Um, my rates now, I really don't know my hourly rates right now because I have packages and it depends on the amount of hours someone signs up for. And then, like I said, if it's a weekday or a weekend. But my most favorite package is that 3-day weekend with 3 hours each day. And then I do like a 90-minute intake and a 90-minute follow-up. And the cost of that package together is $5,050. And it's a popular one. This year I did at least one intensive per month, not necessarily all 3-day intensives. And it took me time to find the marketing strategies that worked to be able to connect with clients who want this service. But they're there. I know I hear from therapists all the time, like, who would pay that or who can do that? And I'm telling you, as our job, it's not really, I mean, there's lots of reasons why people can pay and not pay for things, certainly. And I don't want to be obtuse that there's like systematic, like oppression also that plays a factor. And I'm just making another service available for folks. And if it's of interest to them, um, then I'm happy to do that. And I'm excited as I expand into intensives only in 2024. I'm really looking at like a scholarship program, almost like sliding scale for an intensive for certain folks. So we'll talk more about accessibility as we go on. I'm just chatting so much. Okay, Beverly, how many weekends per month do you usually do? So this year I've done one per month. And next year I'm hoping to do two, but we'll see. It really, just like, your inquiries for normal therapy, it really depends. Like sometimes I'm not getting inquiries for quite a while, and then all of a sudden I'm getting a ton. Like when I guess I should clarify what a ton is. But I think in October or September, when everybody started, like the summer slump sort of ended, I had like three people book intensives like within 1 week. That's pretty rare though. In the beginning, I only did them, like I remember having one in the summer and then one in the fall. So like it was sparse, like a couple months in between. But I also wasn't really marketing. I didn't really know how to do that for intensives. Now I have a pretty good system in place. But yeah, but I'll say it's taken time to build up to one per month. And my goal is to do two per month in 2024, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Okay. I think a good goal, we talk about this a lot in like the intensive design lab, but I think first you're just trying to like put the word out and schedule any at all, with like existing clients primarily. And then I had the goal of like one per quarter, and then I worked up to one per month. And then now, I'm expanding even more. So just go slow. I mean, it's still, again, it's new to therapists, certainly new to clients, but it's a great idea when people reach out for, a typical inquiry to say, hey, I also have intensives available. Here's what it is, and kind of share some of that option as well. So I got to keep going because we haven't gotten to the like meat and potatoes. I just like to talk. So another big question is, are intensives covered by insurance? So no, they are not. If you are in network or paneled with insurance, a 3-hour session is not going to be covered. And so let's talk about, let me see what our next, well, that's a little different. That's kind of for private pay folks. So caveat, I'm private pay. I have never accepted insurance. So take that for what it is. But I'm in circles where people started, as insurance based only, started offering intensives. And then, for them, it felt good to make the transition to private pay only. So in those spaces, what I'm hearing is that they're sharing with clients that, intensives are not covered by insurance. And so if you wish to do this, the 3-hour session or multiple 3-hour sessions, that you would sign a form to opt out of using your insurance, not for every session ever, but for those longer intensive sessions, and then signing a cash pay agreement to just to make sure that's all in order. I'm really excited that I have a new freebie to offer. I'll put the link down below, but if you are an insurance-based therapist, I'm offering a copy of that form, the opt-out form, and the cash pay agreement, because in my experience working with therapists, that has been the biggest stressor and biggest hurdle for folks who want to get started. So I just want to take that hurdle right out of your way, and you can download it. I want to say, obviously, every insurance company is different. And while this form has been recommended or approved by some insurance companies, the best practice is for you to review your contract, see if they do have a specific form for non-covered services, just to be extra careful that you remain in compliance. The word back I hear from therapists who offer intensives and who also are in network is that there's a lot of ambiguity. And so they tend to use the form, create their own billing code. And obviously that is like a personal decision of how you want to handle things. But that tends to be the approach that insurance-based folks have taken. So I want to make that available to you. And if you have other questions, which I'm sure people will, we can continue that conversation. Beverly, can you repeat how we obtain these forms? Yeah, I'm going to drop it in the chat. I wonder if I have the link right now. I meant to have it all ready to go. I'll link it right when we're done. And that's just a freebie that I'm happy to offer. Taking the headaches and hurdles out of launching therapy intensives. That's my mission these days. Okay. I hope that is helpful, and feel free to drop more questions down below. On the flip side of things, private pay folks are asking, are intensives reimbursable? So, like with any type of therapy, it really is dependent on the client's plan. And if they have out-of-network benefits, it is possible that they can submit a super bill to be reimbursed for a portion of the intensive. I will be honest, compared to the investment, it's not much, but some people really do like to recoup some of their money. So whatever your standard practice is for sharing super bills and guiding clients there, I use, I'll link this below too. I have a little guide that I share with folks about how to call the insurance company and really understand what their out-of-network benefits will do. All the questions like, do I have a deductible, and what's the rate they reimburse at, and what form needs to be filled out? The answer is yes. And also, I try not to oversell that it's definitely not going to reimburse the full cost of the intensive. It's really just going to be a small portion. So happy to share that resource as well. And then I hear this one come up a lot. What billing code or codes is used for intensives? Since the billing codes changed significantly around intensives in January 2022, what folks are using currently is this code, 90837, that does not have an end date. So you could be doing therapy for the rest of all of time and still be using one unit. Hopefully that changes in the future. But as for now, what I tend to use is this for 1 unit per day, since it would cover the full 3 hours. Let's talk about affordability and accessibility. So, is it possible to offer a payment plan for therapy intensives? Yeah, there's lots of ways you could be creative with breaking down the cost. So, my standard way payment schedule is that people give a 50% deposit at the time they book their intensive, and then they pay for the remaining 50% on day one of the intensive. So, that's just standard, run of the mill. Um, it really is partially to cover me, that they've invested that much that they aren't going to cancel. And now I will say I've never had anyone cancel an intensive. They tend to be very, very like take their health and healing and their appointments really, really seriously for such a high cost. But I still feel comfortable doing a deposit for that reason. Other options are like you yourself could manage a payment plan if you wish and break it down into monthly payments that are more affordable. Or you could partner with someone like Care Cash, where the client pays or you get paid the full amount up front, and then Care Cash manages for them to be able to make smaller payments over time. And they can pick the amount of payments that's right for them, like 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. And I believe Care Cash, is like 0% APR. There's no like added interest. I've also heard recently that therapists are using Afterpay or PayPal to like set up payment plans. So lots of options these days with technology. And I do really think it's important to think about how to like creative ways to spread out the payment in case someone sorry, I got distracted, doesn't have the finances to pay a deposit like that up front. So, quick question. Beverly says, wait, I'm confused. So you can use 90837 for 3 hours. I was told you can't mix insurance and cash pay. Oh, okay, good question, Beverly. I'm private pay, so I use 90837 because my clients are submitting to get reimbursed through their super bill or through their out of network benefits. So if you're private pay, this is a really good clarification. Thank you. If you're private pay, you use that code. If you're insurance based, typically people are creating their own code that is unique, specific to intensives. And that's, not covered. It's not getting submitted to insurance by the therapist. The client is not submitting it. That's just simply for your records. It's completely cash pay. Also, I was told you can't mix insurance and cash pay, meaning you can't bill insurance for the first hour and then have the client pay other hours cash pay. Yes, I've heard that as well, that would be considered balance billing. And so I would advise that the intensive day itself, all the time on that intensive day, be cash pay. And then if you're going to do an intake session that is more your standard amount of time, then you could bill that, only that, if it's like a 50-minute intake or something. And if you choose that you don't want to do that, you can make the intake cash pay as well if you want it to be a longer intake, like 90 to 22 hours. I hope that is helpful. Keep the questions coming. That's like really good clarification because I know there's lots of details involved. Oh, let me see. Was there anything else? I guess that was my last one. It feels like an abrupt ending. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to add about finances. And if you have other questions, please drop them in. I've also had people inquire about an intensive, understand, the financial investment. And a lot of people, honestly, I don't have openings for intensives like I'm booking into January. So a lot of times people are saying, "What do you have available?" And then there's some months before the intensive, so they have time within their own finances to like plan and budget. So keep that in mind too, with all money mindset things. You know, we can't always make assumptions about people's financial positions, or I've had people get financial support from family members who want to contribute to the intensive. There's lots of different factors when it comes to um, money around therapy. Do you offer virtual intensives or in person only or both? I'm curious about how the virtuals are going. Yeah, I'm hybrid. So I've done both. I really enjoy, since I do trauma work, and EMDR, I tend to like to be in person for the intensives, but I've done it virtually too, and it works pretty well. I think it's just like with any other form of therapy. Some people really like to be in person and that helps them feel connected and safe. And other people like to be at home and log on virtually. So I make it available either way. I haven't had it be like an issue. There's a ton of therapists who offer virtual intensives only, and have great success with it. So both work really well. Um, and are there any client issues that you would not do a virtual session for? I think so. We talked about that a little bit on that first training, the what are therapy intensives, like who's a good fit and who might not be a good candidate for an intensive. And with everything, I think it's really personal to the therapist and your comfort level, like who your ideal client is and your comfort level with like risk and acuity. Um, I tend not to do intensives with folks who've had like a suicide attempt recently, like in the last 3 to 6 months. Because some of the trauma work I do is more in depth, and just having a level of stability is really, really helpful. Um, and I'd not do a virtual session for. No, I don't think so. As long as I had, reason to believe that they're like stable and safe and secure, I think I would be okay with that. And oh, what do I prefer? This is shocking to me. I actually prefer in person. I really thought I would, just being an introverted and like to be like cozy in my own house. I thought that I would have really loved doing the virtual intensives more, but I actually felt more tired and drained. And I don't know if that's just because it was like staring at a computer and sitting still, whereas like when I'm in person, I'm like moving and we like get up and get a coffee or walk or whatever. So that actually really, really surprised me. I do prefer in person. Um, yeah, fun questions. We should just do like a random Q&A, any and all questions. So, oh, Beverly says, I'm 100% virtual now, and my goal is to offer in person only for intensives. Yeah, I think that's great. And there's like so many creative ways. We talked about this again in that other training, but like where you can do an intensive. Um, there's students in the intensive design lab who are doing in-home intensives for folks, especially if people have accessibility issues or it's difficult for them to get into the office. So that is, I mean, if you know the client, you're comfortable with that, that's an option. Someone else said, Amber, I think it was you, said your client got a hotel and was able to kind of like have time away from the kids and then logged on for a session from a hotel room. So there was like privacy and comfort. Love that. I know some people do like an Airbnb, and also doing intensives, like if the weather permits, outside. I love Jackie Flynn. She's a EMDR therapist and consultant who works a lot with kids and teens, and she does intensives on the beach, like literally your feet in the water. Or like there's people who do it like at a farm, and they have like equine assisted therapy, and they use the horses, and so there's all kinds of ways to do it. Um, and so that's just exciting. That's why I like it, being able to try lots of things, seeing what you like, seeing what's good for your clients. That can be that can be fun to have lots of possibilities. Yay! Okay. I think that's everything. Feel free to drop any other questions. And actually, let me put the I'll put the link for the freebie in there, and then I'm going to put the link for the like super bill guide, because I feel like that's really helpful to send one thing, all together. Um, ooh, this is a good question. Are you comfortable sharing what has gone wrong with an intensive? Hmm. Honestly, all of my intensives, I wouldn't say that any of them like had issues. I think some have been more successful than others. Um, I think having a really, really clear focus and goal is very important so that you can stay on track and really know that you accomplished what you're there for. So when I've had people who come in and they're kind of vague and they're like, well, I kind of want to do this and I kind of want to do that, I like really try to, as much as possible, focus and make it like concrete. But those ones tend, and maybe this is just me personally, tend to feel less not fulfilling, but it just doesn't feel like we there's a weird word to use, but like achieved as much. So I don't know if that's just my own like baggage that's coming up, or like fear of being an imposter, um but I think those ones have been more difficult. And then I shared this in the intensive design lab, but I recently did an intensive with someone, and I did not have a great feeling when we did the consult. I thought like, oh, this might be tough, or like, I don't know if we click very well. But I thought like, well, it's just an intensive. I'm not committing to work with them for like years and years. Like, how bad could it be? And then I did it. And I'm not saying it was bad. Like, we did some really meaningful work in therapy, but I was really drained afterwards. I had to work really hard to stay like attuned and empathetic and compassionate, just because of some of the details of what this particular person was like dealing with. And so that made me realize, if I don't feel 100%, clicked and connected, and all the parts of me want to do an intensive with someone, I'm not going to do it, because that just like drained me in such a deep way. And that impacted, how I showed up with my family the rest of the weekend. And I just needed a lot more TLC. Um, and typical assessments for intensives. Yeah, so since I do trauma work, I've done the DES with people just to screen for disassociation. And then I tend to do the PCL5 at intake, and then about a month after the intensive, to measure trauma symptoms and to see if they're having, like if those markers have decreased. And that was one of my favorite stories, that a young woman had come in after a sexual assault, and at intake, scored highest you could ever score for PTSD. Like every single one was the highest. And then a month after, she scored so low, she didn't meet criteria for PTSD anymore. And that was just like really amazing, because it was just the three 3-day intensive. Now I'll say she didn't have much other trauma history. So it was more of a single event trauma. It was not chronic trauma throughout her life, and it was not early like attachment trauma. It was one single incident um, in her 20s. And so just to keep that in mind too, it's so different depending on people's history, you know, how quickly you can process through things. Yeah, that was exciting. That's when I was like, this is so great. I want to do this all the time. And it's really wonderful. So anyway, well, I'm going to I'll drop those links down below. Please let me know if there's other questions or other topics that you want to talk about. I want to continue to do these trainings and really just be able to dive deep on all different types of themes and pieces of therapy intensives. So let me know if you have other things you're curious about, and I'd be happy to set it up. Yay, that's awesome. You're welcome. All right, take good care, everybody. Bye.